How's it going, everyone? Today I wanted to film a 4-year ownership review of my 2003 Saab 9.3 with a 2-liter turbocharged engine. Just kind of go over everything that I've repaired and just my general ownership experience over 4 years. I've put about 29,000 miles on the car since I bought it 4 years ago. I'll also talk about some of the modifications I've done to the car, as well as some of the things that I like and dislike about it, but I really want to talk about ownership costs and has it been reliable and stuff of that nature. So like I said, I want to kind of start with just maintenance and repairs that I've done to the car, because I figure that's probably the most useful information here. So besides oil changes and just, you know, general maintenance, I also did the transmission fluid. The things that I've broken on the car, I guess, in my 4 years and like 28,000 miles of ownership have been the ionization module needing to be replaced. I had the secondary air injection tuned out. That was really only on the 2003 models. It's just a common problem. I did the serpentine belt and tensioner, put some new coolant in it. Another oil change, a new radiator and fan shroud. That was through my own fault. It kind of broke. The car slipped off the jack, unfortunately, and it broke the radiator and the fan shroud. New battery, so brake fluid flush and new brake reservoir cap. Those caps just break, they're like $5. Alternator went bad. That was probably the biggest thing that has gone wrong with this car in my ownership. And then I did brakes, I did a brake upgrade. I did the thermostat and temp sensor about 2 months ago, and then I did a power steering pump O-ring kit. There's a video on that if you're interested that I did more recently. That was to fix an oil leak that I had. And then just another oil change. I've done spark plugs a couple times as well. Coil packs, just some coil packs and spark plugs are, you know, misfires are something that are fairly common with this car. So something that you might encounter if you purchase one of these, or if you already own one, I'm sure you've might have already had to replace coil packs or spark plugs. But really there hasn't been a whole lot in the way of major maintenance. Like, fingers crossed, this car has never left me stranded. One thing that I do have currently going on is there is a slow coolant leak, which could be coming from the water pump. It could be coming from a couple other spots as well. I still haven't really had time to look into it too much, but of course when I figure out what that is and I get around to replacing it, I'll most likely be doing a video on that. But it does currently have a small coolant leak, so that is, you know, it. But like I said, it's been a very reliable car. I mean, I get 20, right now I'm averaging 28 mpg, and it's extremely hot right now. It's going to be over 110 today, so I have the AC cranking. I'm averaging 28 mpg on this thing right now, so it gets great gas mileage for what it is. I guess I can also talk about some of the mods that I have in case you're interested. So this is actually the Arc trim level, which is kind of the middle tier. You have the linear, you have the Arc, and then you have the Aero. And the Arc, it was just kind of the luxurious versions as opposed to the sporty version like the Aero. So I've done some Aero upgrades to it, like I put the Aero steering wheel in, some Aero shifter trim. I did the Aero brake upgrade like I had mentioned earlier when I switched out the brakes. It has a full 3-inch exhaust, it has lowering springs, it has different wheels, it has an intake, it has a stage 3 tune. Really just nothing too out of the ordinary. It has some different seats in it. These are actually anniversary seats, so they're pretty rare. Very supportive, very comfortable, much better than the stock Arc seats, which aren't necessarily bad by any means, but these are just a lot more supportive and comfortable. So just some basic mods that I've really done. I've also installed Bluetooth on it recently. If you missed that video, make sure to go check it out in the top corner. But I think just from reading through my list here alone, as I want to get back on the topic of maintenance and reliability, I suppose, I think that list itself, you know, it might almost kind of seem like a lot, but I mean, over 4 years to only have that much that I've had to do, and a majority of this stuff is either oil changes or the modifications that I've done that I've written down on here. So really, I mean, I'd say there's probably like 4 things maybe that have gone wrong with the car in my time of ownership. So I'd say that's pretty good, you know, for a car that is now 17 years old and has over 140,000 miles on it. I mean, I'm not going to complain. I think that's pretty good. This car has been a great daily driver for me. So if you're looking into one and you're also wondering some of the common problems, I mentioned spark plugs and coil packs. I also have a video discussing some of the common problems with this 2.0 motor. I also did one with the V6, but I'll link the 2.0 common problems video up here in the top corner as well, so you can check that out. Just kind of see some of the more common issues with this car. And, you know, I guess this is also kind of turning into a prospective buyer video as well. You know, if you're looking to buy one of these, what are some things you should look out for? Definitely watch that common problems video. One thing I'd recommend is, if you're mechanically inclined, that's great because, you know, Saab obviously isn't made anymore. You might have trouble finding someone that can work on your car if you don't know how to fix it. So I've kind of taught myself a lot of this stuff. I've also had my dad to help me out when needed, of course. But I would definitely recommend trying to fix this car yourself because it will save you a lot of money. I haven't really taken this car into the shop for much of anything, thankfully, so far, and hopefully I won't have to. But fixing these cars via a mechanic, or I guess more of a Saab specialist, can get pretty pricey just because there's so few out there. So that's just something to keep in mind if you're not necessarily mechanically inclined. So that can be one potential dislike, or I guess negative, of owning a Saab. But some of the things that I like, I mean, I've just done so many videos talking about all the things that I love about these cars. Just their quirkiness, their rarity, just the uniqueness of the vehicle itself, all the cool little features that you get, like night panel, and I don't know, I think, you know, it's, for being a 5-speed automatic, it's a relatively fun car to drive. It's got a good amount of power with this tune on it, you know, enough for a daily driver, not as much as my Turbo X or a V6 that's modified necessarily, but I think it's good for a daily driver. And of course it's got that great gas mileage as well. I think it's a pretty good looking car. I mean, especially when you start to put some of the aero upgrades on it, like mine has the aero front lip. For being a 4-cylinder, it also doesn't sound terrible, so that's not too bad, I guess. If you're wondering what kind of exhaust setup I have on this car, I'll link the latest exhaust video I did. I've had like 3 different exhausts on this car in my time of ownership, but I'll link the latest one up in the top corner so you can see exactly what I have if you're interested. But it sounds all right. Doesn't sound as good as the V6 in my opinion, but it sounds pretty good. But I think one thing I'll ask of you if you're a 9.3 owner is to leave a comment below and talk about your ownership, because I want this video to kind of serve as someone who's looking at buying a 9.3 and keeping one long term. I want them to watch this video and look through the comments and see, you know, I guess just more ownership experiences, because of course you want to try and find one that's been well taken care of. Mine wasn't necessarily well taken care of, but it hasn't turned out to be a lemon, thankfully. But of course, you know, if you find one that has good maintenance records, it's been well taken care of, then you're gonna have better luck with it more often than not. But if you have comments on your ownership experience, please comment those down below, because I'm sure prospective buyers would love to hear what you have to say about your car. And again, there's plenty of people who thinks these cars are unreliable piles of trash, and that's part of the reason why you can get them so cheap. I mean, I paid $1,100 for this car and it had 112,000 miles on it at the time. It did have a check engine light, but that was just a misfire. So a very common issue, of course, as I've already mentioned. Very easy fix too. This car is my daily. It's certainly not perfect. It's certainly still a work in progress. Like, I've replaced the bumpers because you can see the hood still has tar on it that is not coming off. It's been on there pretty much since the car was new. So I've replaced the bumpers, replaced that fender. The front lip was never painted, but there's the aero front lip if you're curious. There's the aero brake upgrade as well, with some slotted rotors that look pretty aggressive in my opinion. And if you're looking at, you know, buying one of these and modifying them, kind of like I have, I mean, I've modified this car a bit, not a ton, but there's good aftermarket support. There's a lot of good Saab tuners out there, so I wouldn't really worry about that. In terms of parts availability, I can't believe I haven't mentioned that yet. If you're looking for, you know, your alternator goes bad, you need to buy a new alternator. You need coil packs, you need spark plugs, you need God knows what, a new coolant hose. Saab parts is probably the best place to go. Euro parts is another great source. I also have a video talking about different part sources for 9.3s or just Saabs in general, so make sure to check that out if you want to know more places, because there's obviously more than just those 2 great sites. But point being, especially if you're buying a new generation 9.3 or any Saab that's really GM era or made in the last 20-25 years, you shouldn't really have a problem finding any sort of part that you need. Thankfully, there's still enough of them on the road that can justify these companies to keep making parts, and I think it'll probably be like that for at least another decade, but I mean, who knows. If you can still get parts for a 40-year-old or 50-year-old Saab Sonnet, I think you can still get parts for a 10-15-year-old GM Saab. But with that being said, I think that's all I've really got for today, guys. If you have any comments, please leave them down below. With that being said, I hope you all enjoyed this video. For you prospective buyers, or you're thinking about looking at one, if you have any more questions, feel free to DM me on Instagram, or just look through the comments below. You might find an answer. Facebook groups are also an excellent resource. I pretty much always direct people to Facebook groups if I can't answer their question. I'm rambling though. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. I'll see you all next time.